First, we have to establish that there's two time periods being mentioned here. The sticky notes from, presumably, the future, whereas the book itself is from a previous period of time. I don't want to use the word past, because 2023, despite technically being the past, doesn't feel right to call it that yet. But because of this, I'll try to refrain from using the sticky notes, as they can't really help us have an accurate time period. With that being said, let's get into this, huh? On the first few pages, we're told that this book is being written in by Micheal Afton, as shown from events later in this book. The next page tells us that this book is for the first week on the job, that it's meant to be filled out at the end of every night, and that this book was written by Fazbear Entertainment. All of these pieces of information will be important later, so write it down. We can also see immediately the use of the FNAF 1 characters, but depending on whether you believe in the Unwithereds existing, this doesn't really tell us anything yet. However, what's interesting is the mention of Circus Babies. By all means, Circus Babies was a property of Fazbear Entertainment when it originally opened, but why would this book bring up characters from a defunct location that was shut down after one day? After all, no guard working at either the 93 location or Fazbear Fright should know what these characters are, regardless of who's writing in it. So why would Fazbear Entertainment mention them at all? A few pages later, we get references to a set of training tapes, more notably the ones heard in FNAF 1. This would make sense if this book was written in 1993, but wouldn't make sense to be written in Frights, as the phone dude mentions finding tapes in the safe room during your first week, and refers to them as ancient. Where would he have found those tapes? Wouldn't he consider them ancient as well? And why wouldn't he play them on the sound system no different than the tapes we hear later? Next, as my friend, or at least I'd call him that, HyperDroid pointed out in a thread about this very topic in red pen, you know, the way Mike is communicating in the book, writes that the rates of the tickets have changed, which seems like a silly mistake for Fazbear to make unless those tickets were, realistic when the book was being written. A few pages later, a mention of JJ, who to our knowledge isn't real. Next, we have a page asking if we were manager, if we'd make more animal animatronics or more human animatronics, which again is a weird question to ask if this book was made in 1993 when no human animatronics were in public use. Oh, and more mentions of Baby, as if she's an animatronic the staff would have interacted with, which is a bit of a bizarre question for a company to ask when those characters have been missing for over 30 years. We scroll down to find what looks like the FNAF 3 office, and while not exactly accurate, it would be mentally insane to copy the designs down to the box from FNAF 3 if this isn't inspired by Fright. We also have mentions of casual bongos, which topples down the current hierarchy of FNAF theories if this is taking place during 93. More mentions of being attacked by baby characters, again, an experience the guard would have no clue about unless this was directed towards Mike. A calendar schedule that's not physically possible unless the company is suggesting the guard have less than 8 hours of sleep, which, you know, is not too much out of Fazbear Entertainment style, but the use of a modern laptop, as well as later trends that wouldn't become a thing until, you know, years down the line, making this taking place in 93 impossible, unless you want to play the "we don't know what technology they had" card. Did you review the training tapes about our new spring lock systems? You must review before interacting with a spring lock suit. Firstly, this implies spring lock suits at any period of time was new, which isn't possible. One might immediately jump to this referring to the tapes we hear in FNAF 3, right? Well, buddy old pal, those tapes weren't found until night 2, week 2, while you're at work. This would require Phone Dude to have lied about finding them, and let Fazbear Entertainment know about them specifically for this book, and they felt comfortable letting that knowledge of the suits get out to public, only to cover it up again with the said sticky notes. Also, what Springlock animatronics would the guard be facing off against at any way, shape, or form, since this book was written before Night 2? Requiring, again, Phone Guy to have lied to us and know that Springtrap already existed and that he was a Springlock suit and just did not care. The continuous use of the words animatronics, implying more than one exist at this location when they didn't even have one yet at Frights. More mentions of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica being active, and kitchen cameras, which are noticeably absent from FNAF 3, and weird things to ask a guard that's never experienced the events that take place in FNAF 1. Oh, and would you look at the rule list that only shows up in the 1993 location? How in the hell would the guard be able to experience any of these? And last but not least, Chica, more notably, one most people associate with the story in Fazbear Frights. What purpose would Fazbear put this in there for? Let alone the fact that Chica doesn't have a full body in Frights. Okay, were you keeping up with all that? Now, let's debunk this book taking place in 1993, as it includes future technology, future trends, and mentions of Springlock animatronics, which should be locked up at this point. Which only leaves us with this book taking place in 2023. In order for that to be the case, it would require 1. Phone Dude and the crew find Springtrap and the videotapes. 2. He listens to all of the tapes and knows what a Springlock animatronic is, sharing that information with Fazbear Entertainment. 3. Fazbear Entertainment decides to make a book out of this information. Mind you, they don't have any locations open to our knowledge at this point, meaning their only purpose for giving this out is to defame themselves, specifically to give it to somebody who's working at a horror attraction, which also defames them heavily. 4. Micheal is hired and works for 1 week listening to the FNAF 1 tapes. 5. He fills out all the information inside of the book, despite not hearing the Springlock tapes. 6. Phone Dude lies straight to his face, saying they haven't found an animatronic yet. And 7. He then tells him they found one and plays the Springlock tapes. It should also be made aware that it's stated that Night 5 is Mike's last night of the week, despite the fact that the guard at Frights comes back for a 6th night, so unless that's supposed to be the 3rd Monday, this book makes no sense in canon, unless you're physically reaching for answers. Regardless if you think Mike is the Fright Guard or not. The use of Foxy in this book, definitely a reference to him. At the end of the day, the book is written by Mike, but using it as evidence for Fright Guard just doesn't work. I'm not saying that Mike isn't the Fright Guard, I'm just saying this is not good evidence for it. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I've got a Fall Fest video to go make before Sonic kills me. Until next time, matane.